now we will talk about a sentence. A sentence has a subject and a predicate. So we will look into it more, we'll discuss, we'll see the examples and see whether we can understand and grasp what is there. So a sentence has two parts. Every sentence has a subject and a predicate. So that's what we are going to do. Subject and predicate. And predicate. We are continuing the sentence. So what did I say? A sentence has two parts. A subject for the sentence and a predicate for the sentence. Now, a group of words cannot be called a sentence if these two, subject and the predicate, is not there. If any one missing, you cannot call that group of words a sentence. So, a sentence has two parts. Every group of words that has subject and a predicate, we say it's a complete sentence. For the group, if one part is missing, we cannot say it is a complete sentence. Okay, now I'll write some sentences for you to understand the subject and the predicate. You need to have both to complete the sentence. The earth rotates on its axis. Now here we have complete sentence, begins with the capital letter and ends with the full stop. Now we are looking to is maybe this sentence has a subject, this sentence has a predicate. It begins with a capital letter and ends with a full stop. As I said, a sentence has two parts and both the parts has to be present to make a complete sentence. Now, here when we talk about the earth rotates on its axis. When we say the earth rotates, the most important part here, what we are talking about is the earth. So that is the subject. What are we talking about? We are talking about the earth. And what is happening to the earth? The earth rotates on its axis. So the earth is the subject, the rest rotates on its axis. The remaining second part is called the predicate. Okay. So in a sentence, you need to identify what are we talking about? What's the topic about? Earth. The rest is the predicate. So we have the earth as the subject rotates on its axis. That's called the predicate. So we learn to identify the subject and this, the rest of it, this portion is the predicate. So we learn to identify the two parts of a sentence. I'll give you another sentence. The boys and girls. The boys and girls are playing. It's a complete sentence, begins with a capital letter and ends with the full stop. Now, who are the most important people here? The boys and girls. So the boys and girls, that is the boys and girls, that is the subject. This is the subject. And are playing is the predicate. So this is the predicate, the other half of the sentence. The first, the most important, you are talking about the earth. The earth is the subject, rotates on its axis is the predicate, Here the boys and girls, what are they doing? Playing. The boys and girls are the subject we are talking about. Next. Sita is reading. Sita is reading a book. Again, it's a complete sentence. It begins with a capital letter. It ends with the full stop. And who is the most important? What is the most important part of this? Sita. What is Sita doing? Is reading a book. So, Sita is the subject we are talking about, and is reading a book is the predicate. Second part, P. So, it's a complete sentence. Sita is the subject we are talking about. What she doing is reading a book. The dogs. The dogs are barking. The dogs are barking. Again here, we have a complete sentence. It begins with a capital letter. It ends with the full stop, and it's got two parts. What's the most important part? Dogs. The dogs are the most important part. So this is the subject, and are barking. That is the predicate, the second part. As I told you, every sentence has two parts. A subject it should have, and it should have a predicate. They must say something about the subject. Now, the sentence begins with a capital letter and ends with the full stop. Look at these four sentences and let us look at the subject and the predicate. The earth rotates on its axis. The earth is the most important, so that's the subject of the sentence, and rotates on its axis is the predicate. The boys and girls are playing. The boys and girls, they are the subject we are talking about, are playing. That is the predicate. The third sentence we have, Sita is reading a book. Sita is the subject. She is reading a book. Is reading a book is the predicate. The last sentence we have, the dogs are barking. The dogs are the subject, and are barking is the predicate. So, a sentence, a complete sentence has two parts, a subject and a predicate. It begins with a capital letter and it ends with the full stop. Now, the cat. Ran up the tree. The cat ran up the tree, begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop. What is the subject here? The cat. So, the cat is the subject we are talking about, and ran up the tree, that is the second part, and that's a predicate. Okay? So, like that you can make your own sentence or pick out sentences and find out what are we talking about. The teacher told us a story. Teacher is the subject. Told us a story. So like that you can find out, write down sentences, look at what are we talking about. The sun shines in the morning or sun shines in the sky. What are we talking about? What is the subject? The sun. The rest is the predicate. So do more exercise for better understanding of subject and predicate. Now, I am going to write down subject and predicate separately, and we will form sentence together. Okay? When you do a lot of exercises, it will become easy to understand what I am trying to tell you. So now I am going to separate. Okay? The child. The sun. The hungry man. The rose. The brave soldiers. The brave soldiers, and finally her sister. Now here I have one part, that's a subject, and I'm going to put the predicate, and you choose the correct ones and form sentences, okay? For the food. Right. Okay. Ran across the road. Is a symbol of beauty. Finally, you have defeated the enemy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we have 6 parts, 6 sets of, 2 sets of 6 words I put down. A sentence has a subject and a predicate. It begins with a capital letter, ends with a full stop. So now you choose words from here, the first and the second lot, and let's make the complete sentence, and let us look at it, which is the subject, which is the predicate. Now obviously, these are the subject I put down, that's the predicate, but then we need to match it up. Now, the child. What will you say? The child enjoyed the boat ride. The child is a subject, enjoyed the boat ride. That is the predicate. The child. Subject, enjoyed the boat ride. So, we got the matching done. The sun, what happened to the sun? Sun is the subject, rises in the east. So, that's the second one. Sun, the sun. That's the subject we are talking about. The predicate is rises in the east, begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. Third one, the hungry man. The hungry man waited for the food. Hungry man is the subject, waited for the food is the predicate, begins with the capital letter and it ends with the full stop. And the fourth one, the rose. The rose is a symbol of beauty. The rose is a symbol of beauty. The rose is the subject and is a symbol of beauty is the predicate. It begins with a capital letter, ends with a full stop. And then you have here the brave soldiers. The brave soldiers defeated the enemy. Begins with a capital letter, it ends with the full stop. So this is the subject, that's the predicate. And finally, her sister ran across the road. Begins with a capital letter and ends with the full stop. Her sister ran across the road. Now, look at all the 6 sentences. Here we have all the subjects. Here we have all the predicate. Now we are putting the 2 sentences together. Let's go over it again. The child enjoyed the boat ride. Subject, predicate, begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop. The sun rises in the east. Begins with a capital letter, ends with the full stop. The sun is the subject, rises in the east is the predicate. The hungry man is the subject, waited for the food, begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop, and that's it. Next one, the rose. The rose is the subject, where the predicate. The rose is a symbol of beauty, begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. Then the brave soldier, that is the subject, defeated the enemy, that is the predicate, begins with the capital letter and ends with the full stop. And finally we have her sister. Her sister is the subject, H, capital beginning, ran across the road and ends with the full stop. So we have joined the subject and the predicate. A sentence has two parts, a subject and a predicate. It begins with a capital letter and it ends with the full stop. Now I am sure you understood better what is a sentence, how to segregate subject and the predicate. Now I will give you few sentences. We will pick out subject and the predicate. So pick out. Pick out the subject and the predicate. Indira Gandhi was a great leader. A great leader. His mother brought him up well. Brother drives a car. Drives a car. Elephants are found. Elephants are found in the forest. The house has a sloping roof. Some animals are active at night. So now we have 6 sentences here, and these sentences are complete. It has a subject and a predicate. So now we are going to look at the sentence. So we are talking about subject and predicate. Pick out the subject and the predicate. Okay. Indira Gandhi was a great leader. His mother brought him up well. Radha drives a car. Elephants are found in the forest. The house has a sloping roof. Some animals are active at night. Now, let's look at it. Indira Gandhi is the subject. We are talking about a great leader. So now, you have here Indira Gandhi. That is the subject we are talking about. Was a great leader. That is the predicate. Was a great leader. That's the predicate. P for predicate, S for subject. Now, the sentence is complete. It has two parts. A sentence has two parts, the subject and the predicate. Indira Gandhi is the subject, was a great leader. The predicate, it begins with a capital letter. It ends with a full stop. Always remember, any sentence begins with a capital letter, ends with a full stop. His mother brought him up well. His mother is again the subject. His mother is the subject. Brought him up well. That is the predicate. Brought him up well. That is the predicate. So you have the two parts. Begins with the capital letter H. Ends with the full stop. His mother is the subject. Has brought him up well. Next one is Radha drives a car. Radha is the subject. We are talking about Radha. She can drive a car. So drives a car, that's the predicate. Okay? This is the subject and the predicate. Okay. So Radha begins with capital letter, name of a person, ends with the full stop. Elephants are found in the forest. Which is the subject? Elephants. Elephant, we are talking about the elephants. That's the subject. And then you have are found in the forest. That's the second part and that's the predicate. The second part is the predicate you have are found in the forest. So elephants are found in the forest. Elephants is the subject. You begin with the capital letter, the first word, and then you end with the full stop. Every time, remember, sentence, you must end with the full stop. Finally, you have, the house has a sloping roof. What are we talking about? We are talking about the house. The house. That's the subject. What does the house have? Has a sloping roof. That is the predicate. Has a sloping roof. That's the predicate. Okay? And it begins with the capital letter and it ends with the full stop. Finally, you have some animals are active at night. Not all animals. Some. What is the subject? Some animals. That's the subject. Some animals are active at night. So you have active are active at night. That's the predicate. Let's look at all the 6 sentences. What did we learn today? We learned that a sentence has 2 parts, a subject and a predicate. And here what are we doing in this exercise? We are picking out the subject and we are picking out the predicate and writing it down. The first sentence, Indira Gandhi was a great leader. The subject is Indira Gandhi and then was a great leader. That is the predicate. Next we have, his mother brought him up well. His mother is the subject. Brought him up well. That's the predicate. Begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. Third one we have, Radha drives a car. Radha, the subject, drives a car is the predicate. Begins with the full capital letter, ends with the full stop. The fourth sentence, elephants are found in the forest. We're talking about the elephant. That's the subject, are found in the forest, predicate. Begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. The house has a sloping roof. We are talking about the house, the subject. What is the subject? The house. The rest is the predicate. Has a sloping roof. Begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. Finally, the last one. Some animals are active at night. Only some animals. So what is the subject? What are we talking about? We're talking about, the subject is some animals. Then are active at night, that's the predicate. So now we have learned A sentence has two parts, a subject and a predicate. Begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. So now, what is the main part of the what are we talking about in the sentence? What is the main part? That's the subject. So today we learned doing this exercise to segregate the subject from the predicate. Now we will do another small exercise for us to find. I give you the subject and the predicate differently, and you choose to form the sentence correctly. Choose the subject. Choose the subject and the predicate. So we're going to choose the subject, going to choose the predicate to form the sentence correctly. Okay? India. Second, Mary. And third, George. And we have had a little lamb. Next you have can eat fast. Then you have is a big city, a big country, sorry. Now I have two parts here. And what we are going to do, we are going to choose from here and make a complete sentence. Okay. In India, here you have the subject, here you have the predicate. So the second part is the predicate, the first part is the subject. Now you match it to get the sentence correctly. The first one, so you get the first one. India is a big city. India, big country, sorry. India is a big country. Okay, now let's look at it. India is a big country, and we have here India. As I said, India is the subject, is a big country is the predicate. You have the predicate. Okay, India is a big country, and you have the second part as predicate. So now you would learn to choose the subject and the predicate. And the next one we have is Mary had a little lamb. Had a little, Mary had a little lamb. What should we remember? Capital letter ends with the full stop. So we have the first part, Mary, being the subject, and then you have the second part, had a little lamb, ending with the full stop. That's the predicate. And finally you have here, third one, George. George can eat fast. He can eat fast. But actually he should not eat fast. Yes, now George begins with the capital letter, it ends with the full stop. George is the subject, can eat fast. is the predicate. Look at it very carefully. When you get two half sentences, how to make a proper subject and predicate, club it up and make a sensible sentence. So what are we doing? Choosing the subject and the predicate correctly to form a sentence. India is a big country. India is the subject, is a big country is the predicate. Mary had a little lamb. Mary is the subject, had a little lamb. That is the predicate. George can eat fast. George is the subject, can eat fast is the predicate. So we learned to join two bits of sentences to make a complete sense, and we know which is the subject, which is the predicate. Begins, a sentence has two parts, a subject and a predicate. A sentence begins with the capital letter and ends with the full stop. Now I'll give you the subject. You can fill up your own predicates. Okay? Now, add predicates, add to these sentences. So I have given you, I'll give you subject and then we'll add on. You will help me to add on. Now let's say wild animals. Wild animals. I put the capital letter, wild animals. Now you complete the subject, the wild animal. The wild animal is the subject. Now what can we say? Wild animals, we can say, are kept, okay, tell me, are kept in, very good, cages. Even in the big zoos, big places, they have an enclosure, but they are protected. They maybe have space, but some places they are kept in cages. Wild animals are kept in cages. Now, wild animal is what I provided for you. That's the subject. Begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. So now you know how to end. Or you can say, wild animals are left free in the zoo. Wild animals run about freely in the forest. You can end anyhow. Okay? Now I'll give you another one. Rahul and Usha. You can end anyhow. Now I have given you Rahul and Usha. R and S are capital letters because that's the name of people. So I have given you the subject, Rahul and Usha. Complete the sentence. So you give me some predicate to complete this subject. What is this? Subject. Rahul and Usha, these are the subjects. Now what are they? You can say Rahul and Usha are friends. They are twins. They are studying the same class. You can end anyhow. You can put anything. This is a subject. You can put anything. Rahul and Usha went to the market. Rahul and Usha are friends. Rahul and Usha are fighting. Rahul and Usha love to study together. So when the subject Rahul and Usha are given, you can end. You can put in any predicate to make a complete sentence. Only thing, end it with a full stop, begin with the capital letter. So now we learn two sentences. We are given the subject, wild animals. Wild animals roam freely in the forest. Wild animals are kept in cage, anything. Rahul and Usha. So we learn to complete and we learn to supply the predicates for the subjects. Okay, all birds. All birds. All birds is the subject I am giving you. All birds, that's the subject. Now, complete the sentence by providing some words for the predicate. Okay. All birds. All birds build their nest. Or all birds can fly. All birds lay egg. Whatever you want. Remember to put the full stop. So we learned, we know the subject. So we know, you know how to fill in the predicate to complete the sentence. Next. The Himalayas. T capital letter. The Himalayas. The Himalayas, that's the subject I am providing. That's the subject I am providing for you. Now, put in predicate to complete the sentence. The Himalayas are the highest mountain ranges. The Himalayas are in the north. The Himalayas are on the northmost part of India. The Himalayas are a chain of mountains. Whatever you want. But remember, end it with the full stop. So, the Himalayas are the highest mountain, the highest full stop. So, are the highest mountain, we filled up that is the predicate. Now, I'll give you one more subject and you can think about the poor woman's husband, the poor woman's husband. That is the poor woman, this is the subject I am giving you. The poor woman's husband. Now you supply the predicate. The poor woman's husband had died. End with the full stop. So now we learned to complete a sentence by providing the predicate. Subject given and predicate, and you will learn also to end it with the full stop. Let's look at it. Subject and predicate. Add predicates to these subjects. Wild animals are the subject. Are kept in cages, predicate. Rahul and Usha, that's the subject, are friends. That's the predicate you supplied. All birds are the subject. Build their nest. Full stop. Himalayas are the subject, are the highest mountains. The poor woman's husband, that's the subject, and you added had died. All sentences end with the full stop. All the sentences begin with the capital letter. A sentence has two parts, a subject and a predicate. I'll give you few more sentences for you to pick the subject and look at which is the predicate. Okay? Ram went for a walk. The trees are tall. Okay? Next, swimming. Swimming is a good exercise. Susan loves boating. The beautiful rainbow The beautiful rainbow soon faded away. Faded away. Good children never tell lies. Never tell lies. Parents love their children. Their children. So I have 6 sentences here, complete sentences, and we are going to look at these sentences and say which is the subject, which is the predicate. It's very easy. As we go along, it's very easy. What are we talking about? That's the subject. The rest is all predicate. It's very easy. So I told you a sentence has 2 parts, a subject and a predicate. It begins with the capital letter, always ends with the full stop. Now look, Ram. Ram went for a walk. Ram is the subject. Okay? Ram is the subject. I am underlining the subject with the red and I am underlining the predicate with the blue. Went for a walk, ending with the full stop. Ram went for a walk. Next, the trees. That's the subject. The trees are tall. Are tall, and so the full stop, that's the predicate. The third sentence, swimming. Swimming is a good exercise. Is a good exercise is the predicate. Is the predicate. Is the subject. Okay? Then Susan. Susan loves boating. Loves boating. Ending with the full stop, that's the predicate. The beautiful rainbow. The beautiful rainbow, the whole lot. The beautiful rainbow, that's the subject. Soon faded away with the full stop, that is the predicate. And then you have good children. What's the subject? Good children. Never tell lies. Never. Good children. Then you have parents. What do the parents do? They love their children. They love their children. Now just look at all these sentences. You have identified the subject and the predicate. So you underline the subject with red, underline the predicate with the blue color. Do it in your book. And now, Ram went for a walk. Ram, we are talking about Ram. Ram is the subject. Went for a walk is the predicate. Begins R capital and ends with the full stop. The trees are tall. The trees, we are talking about the trees. That is the subject. Are tall is the predicate. Begins with the capital letter T and it ends with the full stop. Swimming is a good exercise. We are talking about swimming. Swimming is the subject of the sentence. And is a good exercise is the predicate. So S begins with the sentence begins with the capital letter. Here it ends with the full stop. Susan loves boating. Susan is the subject, S capital. Loves boating is the predicate. It ends with the full stop. The beautiful rainbow. We are talking about the beautiful rainbow is the subject. Begins with the capital letter. Soon faded away is the predicate. Ends with the full stop. Good children are good children never tell lies. The subject here is the good children. G capital. Good children is the subject. Never tell lies is the predicate. Ends with the full stop. Parents love their children. Parents, that's a subject we're talking about. Begins with the capital letter. I have underlined in red. Love their children. That's the predicate. Ends with the full stop. So now I am sure now you know what is the subject, what is the predicate in a sentence. How to pick out the subject, how to identify the predicate, how to join the subject and the predicate together to form a complete sentence. Begins with the capital letter and end it with a full stop. Now we are going to, I'm going to give you subject. So you need to add, no, I'll give you predicate this time. You need to add subjects. We do the reverse. Okay? So you will, by that time, you will understand what I'm trying to say. What we are going to do is, you're going to add subject. This time you will put in, you will supply subject to these predicates. To these so the main thing is adding subject. So I'll write a half the sentence. On dead animals. I'm giving you the predicate. Feed on. Feed on dead animals. Who feeds on dead animals? Very good, vultures. So you can complete the predicate by supplying vultures. So the first one is, you are supplying the vultures. The vultures feed on dead animals. Very good. So you got the subject. The vultures feed on dead animals. You completed the sentence. Full stop, capital letter. Okay. Next one. Is very regular. You can supply anything. Is very regular is the predicate. Who is very regular? She is very regular. Mary is, you can put pronouns or nouns. You can say Peter is very regular to class. You can say Peter, she, whatever you want. So, Peter is very regular. Say very regular to class. Peter is very regular to class. Is regular to class is the predicate, and you have supplied the subject Peter. Or you can say Peter and John, then I have to change the R here. Okay. The third one. Loves music. Loves. Who loves music? I've given you the predicate ending with the full stop. Now you supply the subject. You can say, yes, Susan and Kathy loves music. Peter and John loves music. Whatever you can write. Joe loves music. You can say Tom. Very good. And Joe. Tom and Joe loves music. So Tom and Joe, they are the subject. Who loves music? Tom and Joe. You have become very good now. Next. Is full of flowers. Fourth one. You supply the subject for me. Is full of flowers. Is full of flowers is the predicate. Now you supply the subject for me. What will you write? The garden. Very good. The garden. T capital, because you're ending here, full stop. The garden. The garden is full of flowers. The garden is full of flowers. The garden is the subject that you have supplied. Okay. Then, fifth one. Is our national is our national flower. Is our national flower. That's a predicate. And now you supply the subject for me. What is it? The lotus. Oh, the lotus. The lotus is our national flower. The lotus is the subject that you have supplied, is our national flower. We completed it by putting in a full stop. And finally, I'll put one more sentence for you. Is a faithful animal. Is a faithful. Which is the faithful animal, you know? So, faithful animal. You supply the subject, the dog. Very good. The dog is a faithful animal. That is the subject. See now how well you have supplied the subject for all the predicates. Now, add subject to these predicates. Feed on dead animal. Who feeds on dead animal? The vultures. That's the subject. Begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. Is very regular to class. Who is very regular to class? Peter. So Peter is the subject, P capital letter, ends with the full stop. Another one, loves music. That's the predicate I am giving you. And you supplied Tom and Joe. Loves music, ends with the full stop. Tom and Joe both are names of people, capital letter. Now, is full of flowers. That's the predicate I am giving you, and you put in the garden. The garden is full of flowers. The garden is the subject. Big T begins with a capital, ends with the full stop. Now, I supplied for you is our national flower. That's the predicate, and you said we'll put in the lotus. The lotus is the subject, is our national flower. Is a faithful animal. That's the predicate, is a faithful animal, and you supplied the dog. The dog is a faithful animal. That is the subject, begins with the capital letter, ends with the full stop. So now you know how to supply the subject when the predicate is given, how to supply the predicate when subject is given, how if I give you the subject and the predicate, you know how to do matching correctly. Always remembering the sentence has two parts, the subject and the predicate. It begins with a capital letter and ends with the full stop.